Hello, and welcome to the show Recovery Matters. This is the show where we talk about different aspects of recovery, from substance use disorder, behavioral health issues, and mental health issues. And generally, what we like to do is we tend to bring on people that are actually in the industry or that work in the industry, or they can talk about something on how to recover. But now we're going to talk about people in recovery and kind of how they came through recovery. And today we have a special guest. His name is Jay Booker. And Jay, you just celebrated 10 years, that's correct, in January. And what is your sobriety date?
2010.
2010? Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us. What was that? So you know how like people always talk about how you got to your bottom. Did you have one? Were there a lot of bottoms? What made you decide to get to treatment?
I actually had a lot of bottoms. Got into a lot of trouble.
Okay.
Done a lot of drugs, sold a lot of drugs, kept getting in trouble. And my bottom was actually trying to be the case. And so I went to treatment.
Okay.
Just to be the case. And I mean, obviously I started using drugs at an early age. I would say 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
There was a vivid time where my parents got a divorce, and asking mom for lunch money, there was a breakdown of like not having $3 to go to get lunch for me and my brother.
And how old were you when they divorced?
It was I think I was 13.
13. Okay.
It was 13 or 14. My brother's a year older, and so we get him one of those.
Okay.
And you know, at that time, obviously hanging around different crowds, the wrong ones, and it was one of those, man, I stepped into the lifestyle.
Okay.
And it was more of like I got to be the man of the house. And
Now, were you the older brother?
I'm the younger.
You're the younger, okay.
It was kind of like a split decision. We kind of both walked into it
Okay.
differently, but at the same time, different crowds. And then some things happened, and then it got really big, like quick. And
Okay.
so like there was a lot of money involved, a lot of drugs involved, and
Now, were you in a
I was
gang?
15. No, I never
Okay.
was affiliated.
Now, this is in Nashville, right? We're talking, this is
Yes.
where you grew up. You grew up in
Yes.
Nashville.
Yeah.
And so, what part of town were you living in when
was
this
in
was
Donaldson.
happening? You were in
I was
Donaldson.
in Donaldson.
So how did you start off? Would you start off selling marijuana? Was
Yeah.
it, okay.
Marijuana, and then then the ecstasy and the pills came, and I guess the lifestyle kind of caught up.
Mhm.
Like I got an ego,
Okay.
and
Because you were making money?
making money.
Okay.
And I gave my money to a friend to go get something, and he got robbed, and it was on front. And so like I said, ego, and I went to I was gonna go do it myself, and
Okay.
I caught a robbery charge,
Okay.
aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, and aggravated assault,
Okay.
and got tried as
And
an
how old were you
adult.
at that time?
That was January 6, 2000. So I was
Okay.
a month and a half after I was 16.
Okay.
And,
And they tried you as an adult?
They did.
Okay.
And I ended up pleading guilty to robbery and aggravated assault, and getting 1 year in county jail
Mhm.
and 9 years paper to stay out of prison at that age.
Okay.
I would have violated parole if I didn't get my high school diploma. Like it was,
All right.
there was some stipulations. I had like, I was on, and we ended up getting out. There was two others, so I had two charge partners, and we ended up getting out early. We did like 8 months in solitary. And Williamson County Jail.
So did you go to jail with adults as
Mhm.
well? Okay. And were you in solitary to protect yourself
Yeah,
from them so that
yes.
you weren't in the general population?
Right.
Okay. So,
Against
you
the
know,
law to put the juveniles with the adults.
Okay, so you had to be in solitary. Well, it seems like it would be against the law to put somebody in solitary when they're a teenager. You
Right.
know what I mean? I mean,
It was
they can't
rough.
be mentally healthy, I wouldn't think. But
It was rough. You know, being in recovery and looking back, writing on steps, and it was probably one of the pivotal moments to where like I made it through it. So like the consequences of you being young and continuing to do the same thing, like I lost that fear, I
Okay.
guess. At the same time, was very scared to ever go back.
Right.
But like I was by myself,
Okay.
and I was young, and I just got into that lifestyle, so I wasn't
So
seasoned
you had been
in
selling for what, maybe a year,
maybe a
two?
year, you
Okay.
know, and it just recently kind of popped to a big status, and so
So we talk about God moments, in the program, right? Like,
right,
so the idea was that one of yours, where like you got stopped pretty early on. It was like you didn't get caught
yes,
up the way it was, like you
yeah,
could have, or where you were going.
yeah. No,
So,
it definitely could have. It should have been that,
right.
that one, and but yeah, no, I guess being young, I went to a private school to finish high school,
Okay.
had to, and then
And why do you
once,
say you had to?
well, I was on
Because,
parole, so
okay,
or like
you had to finish
I had
school.
to
Okay.
finish, or I would have got the 9-year sentence. So yeah, no, and then after that, I obviously, I tried to do good. I tried to. I got out of school. I think I went to Vol State,
Mm-hmm.
enrolled, and it didn't take long. Like the college party
Right.
life, and once I got involved, and somebody asked for something, like I wanted to be the man. I had
Right.
that part in me, and so it started over.
Okay.
Um, I almost the same thing. It kind of started out a little, and then it turned into more than the last time, and Vice ended up kicking the door in on me and my brother, and that was a whole ordeal,
Mm-hmm.
expensive attorneys, and luckily I got out with just simple possession and paraphernalia.
Okay.
And I violated, but they reinstated it after a year. So I ended up doing about 9.5 months there
Okay. So
on that time.
you went back to jail.
Yeah, that was the second
Okay.
time.
All right.
And then,
All right. Were you in solitary this time, or was this
no,
like?
this time I was an adult, so I got
Okay.
to be in population, and
Okay.
I actually worked out on the county highway and cut trees and build fences and
So
cut
now we're going
grass.
back to trauma. So in that stint, was there a lot of traumatic experience, or was there, not to kind of, I don't want to re-traumatize you, so you don't have to relive it or
No.
anything, but would you say?
I would say, I obviously there's one more time, and I would say the first one it was trauma. It was,
Okay.
I was still at a point where I had that, little boy in me that wanted mom, and
Yeah.
the visitation was through the glass, and it was tough. The
Okay.
family would come in, everybody thought, because when the actual charge happened, I mean, if I was an adult, I was looking at 23 years. And
Okay.
so, like, there was a lot of, my life is over. And I ain't even graduated high school. So, yeah, it was trauma.
Okay.
Got out, same routine. Didn't know no better.
Right.
It's like, get a job. Okay. And then I don't even remember where I got a job. I didn't work a lot,
Right.
Um,
But when you're used to having as much money as you're used to having, I mean, that's the catch,
it was
right? You go
it
out
was
and all of a sudden you're working this many hours and you're making this small of a paycheck,
right.
So,
Yeah, no, drugs sell themselves too, so it was an easy job. You just had to be available. So
now were you selling for the money specifically, or were you selling to like supply a habit?
both,
Okay.
both. I mean, I was obviously getting high on my own supply,
Okay.
and then, but at the same time, it definitely kept me from having to work. Like
Mhm.
I was making enough money to pay the bills and get high and buy more.
Okay.
I didn't have a bunch of fancy cars, and
Mhm.
you know, a lot of houses or anything, but it was
Right.
it was just
Well, no, because you'd still be in jail then.
right, right. They let me go. So yeah, and then obviously the same thing happened. Or well,
So you've been to jail twice now. Now
I've
you're
been
getting
to
back
jail
out.
twice.
You're starting to get back to the regular life.
yes,
But do you fall back in or
fall back in.
Okay.
My drug of choice changed.
Okay.
So that's when I led more to the pills,
Okay.
and that was kind of my flavor, and so I let the weed go, and then so that was I changed my title of and so like the whole I would say my whole everybody I hung around with changed.
Okay. So was it because the drug changed, the type of people you
Yeah,
hung around changed?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
you had to do what those other people, or
Right.
you wanted the people around you that did what you did, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
then I remember when I was young, they would always say weed's a gateway drug, and at the time I was like, nah, but like it was my gateway because wherever you buy weed, there's always something else,
Okay.
and so that's where I was introduced to cocaine and ecstasy and prescription drugs that are on the street and then I saw, and then that's when, like, when I sold, it was like, you would try to have it all,
Right.
just because you don't want to tell nobody no, and it's all, and so I had a variety,
Okay.
but like then at the end, I only wanted mine, and so I got real specific,
Okay.
and then that's when it got bad.
Okay.
The addiction got bad.
I love you know, the beautiful thing about people in recovery. It's like it's already sounding bad to everybody else, right?
Right.
It's like you've been to prison, right? Like twice or jail twice.
Right.
Now it's bad though. Like you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so when you say
When I-
bad though, what do you mean by bad? You mean the addiction got bad to the point you were
Right.
What? Okay.
When it got bad for me, because jail was bad.
uh-huh.
Obviously, being 16, that whole situation was horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But years going by and being on probation, going to see a PO, and 2-3 years, it gets monotonous and it's normal, and you start thinking you got this,
Right.
and so, like, when I say it starts getting bad, it's like when my life started, like I could, I used before I brushed my teeth in the morning,
Okay.
and like the drug that I was doing was more important than anything, and when that happens, man, it's a lifestyle that's just real dark, and there's a feeling of no way out,
Mm-hmm.
and I obviously I didn't get clean, right?
Right.
I did. Well, that was my first introduction to trying to get into treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was December 20th
Mm-hmm.
that I went to jail, and so that was like right before Christmas, and
Why did you go to jail this time?
voluntary piss test
Okay.
or urine test.
Okay, whatever.
And they immediately violated me and tried to give me the whole 9. And my
Okay.
PO came in and stood up for me and said that we talked about it in the beginning, and my 9 was a 6-year sentence and a 3-year sentence.
Okay.
And they tried to give it to me all, and I was 3 years out. And so that was another scary moment of, uh-oh, I was trying to get
So
help.
you only had 3 years left, or you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
so I turned myself in, and they immediately shipped me to prison on a voluntary piss test.
What? Okay.
And so I ended up going to prison for 18 months. Good time. I did a half of it.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I get out and didn't know anything about recovery, and so I immediately did it again. This time it was, it was a simple light. It wasn't that big, and I caught a charge, and then that's when I think
How many charges did you catch? No, you say these things like I'm like losing count. Like so, you
No,
got a
that-
charge. So like it's been 5, right?
Well,
Is
there's
that
a
about-
couple. No, I think 1, 2, 3, four, and there's a bunch of charges on
God
the four.
loves you, man. That's all I gotta say. Look,
I
you're a
know it.
Sagittarius, right? No, I'm
Right.
kidding.
So the last one, I went to treatment.
Uh-huh.
I was finally off parole because when I got out of prison, I was flat. It was the first time
Okay.
ever that I was not underneath the state,
Okay.
and that one hurt, like, because I finally got free of them, and
Mm-hmm.
here I go catching another one, and but at the time I went to treatment, I was just literally trying to beat the case and not catch another felony.
Okay. Did you go to treatment here in?
I went to Pathfinders in Castilla Springs.
Okay.
And then, man, day 3, the priest, he gave us some little Jerusalem wooded crosses, and man, a tear dropped in my eye, and I just felt safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, like, not knowing what I was doing, but that feeling of like, man, I can't keep doing that. And then recovery started.
Okay.
And recovery has been wild.
So
Yes.
you're in NA. Is NA your program? Is that what you
Yes.
like? That's what you practice?
Yes.
So, for your NA, like, how was your first 30 days? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because this is a story that I don't tell too many people, right?
that's why you're here.
Since I'm in the situation that I'm in now, and you'll catch on to it,
Right.
it's okay. Yeah. So before I got arrested, I had a way out. I wanted to get out, and I had a friend that was in aviation, and so when I got clean, I did the tree. I only was in there 22 days, and I was the guy trying to stay longer. I was also the guy that the counselor said I wasn't gonna make it.
Right.
I also, like I was messing with the girls. I was not paying attention, but
Right.
I was clean. And so I get out, and he talks me into going to a halfway house, and I'm worried about going right back to where I was from. Like, obviously, I've done that.
Right.
So I go to a halfway house in Murfreesboro, meet some great guys. I think I'm there only about 2 to 3 weeks, and they're like, "You need to get a job." And I immediately hit the road, and
So you like, say you get a job, you
on
left,
a fake
you like-
resume,
Okay.
and start working on airplanes,
Okay.
and
You,
just
you faked your resume.
I copied my man's resume and put my name on it, man. And I just said it on TV.
I love
right?
it. All right.
Yeah,
You gotta do what
so-
you gotta do, right?
And so so I end up, I think I picked up 60 days in Macon, Georgia,
Mhm.
90 days in Mobile, Alabama,
Okay.
6 months in Indianapolis, and then I ended up staying there for I think 10 months.
Now, why were you moving around so much?
I was
it-
contracting.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
was working for a contract company, and then I would just go to wherever needed the work. And I literally just taught myself in the hotel room and watching.
You taught yourself how to do this?
I mean,
like, you didn't
yeah.
go to school for this at all.
No.
This is nice.
And so like,
Well, it goes to show you how smart you are. You know what I mean?
I mean, I can
Like, you're
adapt,
enterprising.
right?
You know, that's enterprising. So
So yeah, and then that so I gained a career
Mm-hmm.
immediately. First career I ever had, and so I was attached to it. It meant a lot. It was actually what my dad has done,
okay.
and so it was just for the first time. I felt proud of myself. Like I
Okay.
was starting to, in recovery. That's been my experience. I've done some amazing things that I never thought I could do.
Like,
I went to school and actually got licensed to work on
Okay.
airplanes. Right?
There we go.
Okay.
Right.
I'm a great dad today.
how many kids do you have?
I have two daughters.
Okay.
14
Nice.
and 8.
Congrats.
And then I've had a lot of mistakes, Queen, right? And
Okay.
so like and to overcome them
Mhm.
and go through the pain and feel it and
Right.
know
Be
you're
present.
be present and not use over it. cry about it for the first time and, be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, man. And then and here I am, I'm still in the process. And, mom just passed away last month.
Sorry to hear that.
And it's been a wild.
You had some interesting things to say about that when we met last time. So, like, you got some you got some faith out of the whole thing you were saying.
Okay,
like,
so lifestyle wise,
uh-huh.
about a year and a half ago, man, a little while, for a
Uh-huh.
while.
Right.
I wasn't living right. I was running around single, in and out of a relationship. Couldn't, love was there, but like obviously, when you don't treat somebody right, you question it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there was a lot of, man, I was all over the place,
Okay.
and it put me in a spot where at clean 9.5 years, I really didn't like who I was.
Okay.
And so I ended up, I hurt a bunch of people in the process, and finally like turned the phone off, looked inward for the first time, and started paying attention to myself, and instead of using everybody else trying to make me feel better. And so it was a eye-opening experience. It was a new experience. I'm a people person.
Right.
I have feelings, but they don't really affect me that much. This one hurt part.
So the thing about it, and I just kind of like, because we talk about this a lot, it's like just because you get sober, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get healthy. And so that you actually have to keep working on yourself in order to get healthy. So, I mean, you bring up an amazing point. I'm glad you kind of threw that out there. At like 9.5 years, you're looking going, I'm still doing,
Right,
crazy stuff. And so
right.
that's interesting. But go ahead, I'm sorry. So
Yeah,
at like 9.5 years, you look at yourself, you don't like the life you're living, and so you
right.
do what?
I started reading. I started praying. I started researching spirituality. I was actually in a meeting the other night, and they were talking about surrendering God, and I shared about how throughout my whole process in recovery, I've been jealous of everybody else's relationship with their higher power.
Okay.
I'm just now at 10 years, at 9.5, 10 years, have like really touched on one that I would actually call like, yeah, we're going somewhere. It was the first time that I actually seeked all gods, right?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because I was in a
Look, you are
position.
in Tennessee now,
Yeah, my
Just messing with you.
grandmother might
Right?
watch this, right? And so, but regardless,
Uh-huh.
the relationship that I got today, and I don't call it higher power. I'll keep it real simple, and it's what they're talking about though. So I meant like, as long as I
Right.
got it, it don't matter, right?
Right.
It's kind of like my outlook. And then in that process,
Hmm.
mom passed away, and
Okay.
so like and thank God that I was in that process. It's kind of like the where I'm at today is I've never dealt with losing a family member.
Hmm.
I've lost.
And I mean, that's your mom, so
That's the
that's.
only person I wanted to call when
Mhm.
it was that close. My dad and grandparents on his side are still here, and we're all in the same community, and
Mhm. And okay, I just got to bring this up. So you recently had a vision, right?
I
You had
know
a
it.
vision.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
to bring it up because
Okay.
it now makes sense because now you're telling your whole story. You know
Right.
what I mean? So that the men's part of it you don't need to do, but you've actually realized recently that the career that you've had,
Mhm.
is not necessarily the career you want to continue, right?
Right.
Okay.
And
And how did that come about?
so,
I love this story. I'm sorry. I had to I had to bring it up. I really
so you want
did.
the whole story, right?
Yeah, I wanna.
Okay. So about 5 months ago, started. I had a neck surgery, a small surgery on. I had to replace a disc,
Uh-huh.
and so I was out short-term disability for 3 months. They wouldn't let me work on restrictions. It like took out my whole right arm. First time in 9 years, I looked for a job, or 8. Let me say that I worked there for about 8.5. And it was one of those mornings, you know, short term. You just kind of waking up, and it was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, I try to get back in the groove of going to work after the services and stuff, and man, it pulled up at work one morning, and it was just a dark place, sitting in the parking lot. I'm always early, you know. I'm all, you know, and so I watched the clock till I was late, and called a couple of people, and was just like, man, I'm like, I don't want to go in there, like.
But you saw a cloud.
I saw
right?
it. It was
Was it an energy you felt it, or you saw it?
In that spot. Man.
Okay.
Like, I wasn't in it. I was in the parking lot, but like, I didn't want to cross the threshold. I saw like this. Yeah, you making me say it. Shit.
I love it. Like,
Yeah.
it was the thing that you, so.
I mean, and it was undeniable.
I love the fact that
Right.
you had a spiritual experience.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm all about spiritual experiences,
Right.
so I'm like, talk about it.
I've been running
put it
around
out
like
there.
telling a couple people,
You
and
know?
you got me up here like, yeah.
Hey, you had a
but
spiritual
no,
experience.
it's my truth.
So let's trace it back though. So now that I know your story, I can kind of like connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
So your ego is what chose that career. It had nothing to do with a spiritual connection. It had nothing to do with like you listening to Spirit telling you what to do.
Right.
So the idea is Spirit gave you a concept of what you want to be or who you want to be.
Right.
And listening to that made you let go of what you chose with your ego.
I ain't
know?
never let go of something so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I left that day, and it was like I got out of prison.
Mm-hmm. That's when you've actually worked a spiritual program. That's when you've actually connected, and that you're connected to Spirit. So, and now you're on TV. So.
Yeah. And that's why I'm here. I'm connected. It's cool, man. So no, life is good, regardless of the hiccups. So.
Right. Thank you very much for coming on. I did want to just appreciate you telling your story and what's been happening in your life with your connectivity, and giving some wisdom to people out there who actually are struggling and are in a bad place and don't know how to get from there to here. And you're a shining example of that. So thanks for coming on. So this has been Jay Booker, who is a recovering person in long-term recovery, I should say, a person who's had his addiction in remission for quite a while, or substance use, and he's a shining example of what the program can do. Thanks. And until next time, this has been Recovery Matters.
We are currently undergoing a mental health crisis. Millions of people are struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, suicidal ideations, or a substance use disorder. If you or someone you know needs help with a behavioral health, mental health, or addiction issue, please reach out. There is support for what you're going through. Call 800-676-0929 to speak with a recovery navigator who will help you find support. Again, call 800-676-0929. Call now. Recovery is possible, and recovery matters.